Hey everyone, this video is going to be a deck tech of my kitty Katsu list. I already did a deck tech hidden in the back of my storytime video, but I wanted to give this another shake just so that it gets to people who are interested. Now, if you've been watching O3 Drop for a while, you know that we're committed to the offbeat, off meta Legends of the Armory. And I think that this deck is a great way to look at what that means in a broader conversation. And so, without further ado, let's get into it. All right, here we have the list. And what I want to talk about with this list before we even look too closely at what exactly we're running is the nature of the armory, the nature of competition, and metas. This is not the meta defining deck. This is very much its little brother. In fact, not even. It's distantly related. This deck is it's a fun deck. I think it's a good deck, but if you're someone who, let's say you built Zen and you had high hopes for your ability to compete, but you didn't love the deck and you found yourself not interested in uh competing. Um, that's where I was, and this deck was the answer for me. This deck is really fun, and it speaks to what I want to do in the game. I've always been a Katsu main. I love the his on hit ability. I think it is so such good design. I think it's such good design. Anyway, if you're someone who just wants to compete, but this meta is not feeling right for you and you just want to have fun playing Flesh and Blood, this is a great deck to bring to your armory just to get some reps in, see how it feels. I'm pretty sure you'll have a fun time. So we'll start with the equipment. Now, this is a tunic list. Um, in most matchups. We have Vest of the First Fist for other ninjas and for games that we don't expect to go longer than 3 turns. I also include it if I'm playing against a dash just to have an additional piece of equipment that I can block with and not lose. Um, you have 2 choices of headpiece here, Mask of Momentum and Mask of Pouncing Lynx. This is pretty standard stuff for Katsu. I choose to use Mask of Momentum whenever I think my opponent doesn't want to block. Whenever my opponent wants to keep their full hand, I use Mask of Momentum. If my opponent likes to block, gets value off of blocking, like someone like Victor, I'm going to run Mask of the Pouncing Lynx. And you can keep it that simple, right? You can just say, does my opponent want to give me cards from their hand or not? And that can be how you decide what mask to bring, and you'll probably be in pretty good shape. I will say it's a little bit trickier for the illusionist matchups. I've heard people say never run Mask of the Pouncing Lynx, you'll never get to use it. I don't know about that. I do think that Mask of the Pouncing Lynx ceiling is quite a bit higher. Um, Pouncing Paws. Pouncing Paws is super important piece of equipment. The obvious comparison is Strides of Reprisal in Zen, which makes a tiger in your hand and has Blade Break. This has Battle Worn and makes a tiger in your banish zone that you can play. Now, that does mean we can't use it for things like Art of War, but it also means that we can get it when we need it and we can block when we don't need it. So this tiger is going to be a game defining tiger most of the time. You'll be able to feel when you just need that extra tiger when they've done their math wrong and you just need one more. This is a great piece of equipment for that reason. Tiger Strike Shuko, we are running a whole lot of 1 and 2 attacks, and tigers for 0. So this is active almost every turn. It's a great piece of equipment. There really is no other option in this list that I would run. I would not run breaking scales. It's not that important that we hit with combo cards, and the value we get off of Shuko is just going to be much higher. Tiger Taming Kakura and Zephyr Needle. We can think of these similar to Mask of Momentum and Pouncing Links. If my opponent wants to block, I'll probably run Tiger Taming Kakura. If my opponent doesn't want to block, Zephyr Needle is a great way to coerce them into giving you a card from their hand. I will also add that Tiger Taming Kakura is definitely the go-to choice against any matchup where they are running a ward. So right now, that's mainly illusionists. I do believe that Runeblade has access to it, but it's such an edge case that that's really we're gonna focus on illusionist for that. Um, and now I want to start with I'm gonna start with Tiger Swipe, right? Because if you don't know this card is the power card, one of the power cards of this deck. It's important to know. So it's a 0 cost red that blocks for 3. It has combo. If Crouching Tiger was the last attack this combat chain, it gets +2, go again. And when this hits, create X Crouching Tigers in your banish zone, where X is the number of Crouching Tigers you control. Now, you may have noticed we have cards like Roar of the Tiger, which makes a tiger in our hand and gives tigers +1. And we have Predatory Streak, which makes 3 Crouching Tigers. So if we have 4 tigers beforehand, we are looking at 4 additional value if this hits, if they're pumped once. If they're pumped twice, we're looking at 8. So this card allows our turns that are explosive to be additionally there's an exponential value to this card based on the number of tigers and the number of pumps that we have. So we'll look at Roar of the Tiger next. Now, I mentioned how our boots don't put a tiger in our hand like Stride of Reprisals does. This is the only card in this deck that does that. You have another card that you could use, which is Mind State of the Tiger. I'll maybe touch on why I don't run that in the end, but the essence of it is no go again. So Crouching Tiger in your hand, you can use that for Art of War. If for some reason you do not know what Art of War does, Art of War is an instant for 1. It lets you choose 2 modes. You are almost always going to want to be choosing the first and the last mode, which is our attack actions. You control get +1 power and +1 defense this turn. And you may banish an attack action card from your hand if you do draw 2 cards. So if you have, let's say, a Tunic resource up, Art of War in your hand, Roar of the Tiger, and Predatory Streak, we'll say you blocked with the other card, right? You play Roar of the Tiger and Predatory Streak. You have 2 cards in your hand left. You have a Tiger and you have Art of War. You use your Tunic to play Art of War and you banish your Tiger, and then you draw 2 new cards. Those 3 tigers in your banish zone now all attack for 2. So that's really valuable. Let's see, what card do I want to talk about next? Let's since we're on the topic of these chain buffs, let's talk about Head Leads the Tail. Head Leads the Tail is an attack action that says when this attacks, name another card. Important, another card. You cannot name Head Leads the Tail. Attack action cards with that name get +1 this combat chain and go again. Now, if you don't own Command and Conquer, there are plenty of 6 power attacks that you could run in its place, like Humble, Wreak Havoc, Weakest Link. I run Command and Conquer in this list. You oftentimes will name tigers. if you have tigers to play on the chain, right? So if you have a red predatory streak in hand, you better play it before you play head leads the tail because it's this chain link, right? Or this chain, rather. But sometimes on a 3-card hand, if you have a blue pitch, head leads the tail, and something like Command and Conquer or some other disruptive 6-power attack, you can go head leads the tail, name that attack, and then attack for 7. That is a great way to sneak some damage over the top, as that is going to require typically their whole hand or some equipment. Now let's look at our attack reactions. Ancestral Empowerment gives a ninja attack action card +1, and it draws you a card. My favorite card in the game, wonderful design. I love everything about this. It is the perfect Katsu card. I don't know that there's much need to say more about that. We also run Maul. We run 2 copies of Maul. One of the things that's great about this list that I should have mentioned at the beginning when I'm talking about, if you're feeling like this meta isn't a place for you, if you're feeling like you want to play something a little bit more unique, this list is great because people don't know what to expect. And Maul is a great example where your opponent, because they are not familiar with this list, is incentivized to assume that you play 3 copies of Maul. As soon as they see it, they will begin to think about playing around Maul on other turns where you're able to pump your tigers, right? So that's a great mind game where your opponent doesn't know this deck. This deck isn't highly popular, so they are not sure how many copies they need to play around for this. Just one of the reasons I really like this card. I run 2 of them. It's also oftentimes just great to have another 3 block with a 0 cost. And then our final attack reaction that we're running is Razor Reflex. I go back and forth on this card, but I think that it in any Tunic list that runs 0 and 1 cost cards, it's really good. And having one of these can definitely decide a game. I'll talk a little bit about the sideboard real quick, and I know I'm jumping around, but we'll just get this out of the way. Blanche is a 7-power attack, so it's a great popper. It also is great against Mystics, because it can turn off colors, which means their blue cards will no longer be active for transcending. Command and Conquer, as I mentioned, is a great card. It's wonderful disruption, and Flick Flack, just for matchups where you think you're going to deal with very disruptive hits. And then, of course, we are running Arcane Barrier 3 in this list. So that's the inventory. Let's get back to the meat and potatoes here. And I am going to keep jumping around because I want to start looking at Biting Breeze. Biting Breeze says when this hits, create a Crouching Tiger in your Banish Zone. You may play it this turn. Go again. So this card's value at the beginning of the chain is at least 2 if it hits, because your tiger will have the buff from Shuko. This is a great card, especially when you're a little bit further into the game and your opponent might not have as much equipment, and equipment becomes a lot more valuable as it becomes tempered and worn down. So this is a really nice card to be able to get your tiger when you need it. It's also great as a 0 cost and a blue. I don't love that it blocks for 2, but a lot of this list by its nature has to block for 2 just because that's how ninja cards are designed. So that is a great way to start our tiger chain. What is another way we can follow it up? Breed Anger. We have blue and red Breed Anger. The blue attacks for 2, the red attacks for 4. And it says, when this attacks, if Crouching Tiger was the last attack this combat chain, this gets go again and create a Crouching Tiger in your banish zone. You may play it this turn. Now, I see that some people are interested in running cards like Pouncing Key. And I believe that the reason they want to do that is that it's a 0 cost and you can come in for 4 after a tiger. But this list is about pumping all tigers on the chain, right? It is about making as wide of a chain as possible where each of those tigers do at minimum 1. Ideally, we can get them to do 5, 6. We can get them to be much larger. But Breed Anger is a great card to recover that tiger in your hand, right? You're going neutral on tigers when you play Breed Anger. So that's why I choose to run this over something like Pouncing Key. I don't think Pouncing Key, it's not in consideration for this list. I'll put it that way. Now let's look at what we could follow up our Breed Angers with if we want more tigers. Aspect of Tiger Body and Aspect of Tiger Mind are 2 combo cards that say when this attacks, if a red, or in the case of Aspect of Tiger Mind, blue attack action card was the last attack this combat chain, this gets go again and create a Crouching Tiger in your banish zone. You may play it this turn. So the red one is what we are often going to be in search of. In fact, this is the card that we most commonly use Katsu for when we have Chase the Tail in our hand. Because the way that this card works is it has combo, and it says when this attacks, if Crouching Tiger was the last attack this combat chain, this gets go again, and the next Crouching Tiger you play this turn gets +3. How do you get that tiger? If you did not play a red predatory streak, if you didn't hit with a biting breeze, if you don't have your boots, the way you get that tiger is you play red Aspect of Tiger Body. Right after Chase the Tail, you'll get a tiger. That tiger will be buffed. So that's a very important interaction in this list. It comes up very often. Hey everyone, I want to take a moment to tell you about one of Flesh and Blood's most anticipated events this summer, Camp Green Tree, a Flesh and Blood summer camp happening August 16th through the 18th at Godspeed Events in Port Matilda, PA. You may already be aware of our 2K Blitz tournament or our 5K Classic Constructed tournament, but there is much, much more that you won't want to miss out on, including a variety of camp-themed electives hosted by some of Flesh and Blood's most artistic creators. If you've ever wanted to try your hand at crafting a one-of-a-kind altar or dip your toes into the world of cosplay, this is the perfect place for you to get started with the help of a community of passionate experts. Or maybe you're looking to outmuscle the competition in a battle of wits. In that case, we've got a trivia night that's just for you. And we'll be hosting live recordings of some of your favorite Flesh and Blood podcasts. Now, when it comes to camping, I know that I like to pitch my tent like a brute, but don't wait to make your housing reservations, as group lodging is limited. For more information on booking your housing and getting your tickets for Camp Green Tree, head on over to gscfab.com, and I'll see you at summer camp. Let's stay on tiger cards for right now. Flex Claws. We run red and blue. They are a 1 cost attack action with a 2 block. The red has 4 power and the blue has 2 power. It says when this hits, create a Crouching Tiger in your banish zone. You may play it this turn. This is a great card because it's a break point and it makes a tiger. You might not always even need that tiger, but you can bluff it. So this is a card that I've gone back and forth on running 6 of these, but I do think that it's the right call. Now I run 4 copies of Growl. I run 2 red and 2 yellow. I would absolutely understand if you ran more of these. I think this is an important card for when you don't have your buff, because this says when this attacks the next crouching tiger this turn gets +1. It actually says this combat chain, right? So don't break the chain. But this is a great card to be able to, if you have a tiger in your hand and you're able to play this, swing your Kakura, and then you're able to come in for your tiger for either 2 or 3, depending on if you've played Growl. It's not a big turn, but it's making use of your hand. And that is one of the tricky things about this deck is you can have these explosive turns where you threaten 200 damage, but you can have turns where you threaten 6 with all 4 cards in your hand. You have to be able to know uh, when and how to you need to know what to present to your opponent, right? And sometimes it might be 6, but you're just gonna have to block if you keep these cards and they block for 2. So you want to keep the pressure consistent. Um Now, this isn't a tiger card, but we can consider it a chain. It is a chain ender. It is a chain ender for turns where we have 11 tigers on the chain. Um, Salt the Wound. It is a classic tiger card or ninja card rather. Staple, Hmm. staple and fly. Um, Salt the Wound gets +1 for each attack that has hit this combat chain. It also has 2 power, which means it is a Mask of the Pouncing Lynx target. I recommend that you, even if you have a massive chain, um, you should try and save your Mask of the Pouncing Lynx until you can guarantee that you can get your opponent into under 15 life, at least. I would not, if you have a massive chain and you did 10 instances of 1 damage and you can break this to possibly send them to 20. I mean, that's good. That's really good. It's hard to say not to do that, but I'm wary of that. I don't know where I land on that right now, actually. Um, I mean, 10 value, actually 12 value. I think you'd have to take that play, but I just don't be greedy is the point. Especially if they have cards in their hand, don't be greedy. Um, because Mask of the Pouncing Lynx is one of your best tools in this deck. It makes I was gonna say it makes good turns great turns, but that's exactly what it does with Salt the Wound, right? So I suppose, yeah, if you have a chain that long and it's early in the game, you can do that and just get your tempo. Take control of the game early. That's fine. I typically like to wait, but let's move on to some other cards. We have 3 other cards to look at, right? Double Strike. Double Strike is such a good Katsu card, criminally underrated, because Double Strike has when the chain link resolves, banish it, and you may attack with it again this combat chain. If you do, it loses that ability. This is a great card because it almost can guarantee your ability to get a Katsu trigger, which with this deck is often what you need in order to have your tiger turns. Like let's say you have um this in your hand You have a Roar of the Tiger, you have Chase the Tail, and you have another 0 cost attack. Let's also say you have a Tunic resource because you'll need it here. This is your way to go get Aspect of Tiger Body, because they're going to have to block this twice. Then they'll have to block the Tiger from Roar of the Tiger. Then they're going to have to block 4 on Chase the Tail. Um, if they're able to do all of that, I still think you probably have won that turn cycle because they've given a lot of blocks to very little damage. But if they are not willing to commit to that, you just add 7 to your chain, right? Because you get the 3 from the Aspect of the Tiger. Actually, no, you add 6 because you will have already had Shuko trigger. So, great card. Another great one is Enlightened Strike. Obviously a staple in the game. And why I like Enlightened Strike so much is that it's often just the best way to throw a 2-card 7 in this deck without losing cards in your deck. There are a lot of times where the best option is to discard Enlightened Strike for Katsu. And it's kind of at times can be tricky to really like math that out, especially if they let you hit early and you have the rest of the cards in your hand. But just try and think like I guess the way that I like to think about it is, am I going to be able to play Enlightened Strike and the rest of the cards I want to play? And if I choose 7, or if I choose draw a card and we'll call that 8, we'll say the value of the card you draw is 3. Is that more or less than what I would get if I discard this for something like a Tiger Swipe? We have one more card left to talk about in the list, and that's Warmonger's Diplomacy. We run Warmonger's Diplomacy because it's a blue 3-block 0 cost that has relevance into many matchups. But Warmonger's Diplomacy can hurt us more than it can in a traditional Katsu list because of Roar of the Tiger, because of Predatory Streak. Um, these are power cards. These are cards we want to see, and when we see them, we want to play them. In the case of both of them, we want to see them with a combination of other cards, right? We don't just necessarily want to play Red Predatory Streak if that's all we have. But I have lost games because I played Warmonger's Diplomacy and my opponent, as Azalea, just said, okay, war, and then broke their long draw half glove and left me with a handful of unplayable cards or cards that didn't synergize well that I ended up having to pitch for weapons that didn't really want to. I wanted to see those cards, so I didn't really want those cards to be pitched. But anyway, that's the deck. I hope that if you are someone who is feeling that this meta has left your hero behind, has maybe just not really sat well with you, that you'll consider giving this deck a try. Bring it to an armory, bring it to a place where you're just having fun and trying to do degenerate things. If you play this deck into the meta matchups, if you play this deck into Zen, you still have a chance. Don't think that just because you're on Tiger Katsu and they're on Zen means that they're necessarily guaranteed to win. That's not the case, because you have just as much potential to have explosive turns. They just have a little bit ability to block more. Bonds is sort of a mid-range card. And then, if they don't have blues in their hand, if they don't really have much they can do, they could block. They probably won't, but I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give us a like and a subscription. Um, Go ahead and like and subscribe. It just feels weird to say give us a subscription, right? Anyway, like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Let us know what other decks you've been bringing to armories that may not be getting the love they deserve, that you want to see highlighted on our show. And maybe we'll just do that. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe a little Max Nitro coming out soon. He's a very cool guy. He's a very cool guy. He has blue hair. He has blue hair and he has a cool name. So, anyway, that's all for today, folks. Thanks for checking it out, and we will see you in the next one.